Hello and welcome back to the Watford Way podcast, the place where we discuss all the latest ongoings and shenanigans around our wonderful club cow, Watford FC. It's a pleasure to have you back on the channel once again. I couldn't go through another Watford season without an appearance from you on the Watford Way. So a pleasure to have you back on. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to be back. It feels like it's a desert wasteland now here, considering it's been so long since I've been on here. But it's a pleasure to be back. Thanks so much for inviting me back on. I'm looking forward to it. Not so much looking forward to watching Watford play next, but hey, we have to. I'm here to discuss obviously the big news that's broken around the club, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to recording today necessarily, but as you say, certainly some big news to discuss. And we'll start with that news right now. So what I'll do is I'll read you out the official club statement that come via Watford FC last night, Cal. I was just about to get into bed, and then at about 10:10 yesterday evening, Watford broke this news on social media. And I wouldn't say it come necessarily as a shock to me, but we'll discuss all of that in just a moment. I'll read you out the statement first. And the statement says as follows. It says, Tom Cleverley will assume the position of interim head coach at Vicarage Road. This follows Watford terminating the contract of Valérien Ismaël after today's home defeat to Coventry City. The Hornets thank Valérien and his staff for their dedication and commitment. However, the club's board considers it an appropriate time to make a change in order to improve results. Then it goes on to say Tom Cleverley's staff will be confirmed in due course. Now, Cal, as you're the guest, we'll come on to your thoughts on that statement first. Firstly, what were you doing when the statement dropped? And secondly, what was your kind of initial reaction to the official Watford Club statement there?
So I was out enjoying my evening. I was with a mate and we were watching the lovely film June 2,
Yes.
ranked 4th currently in the box office. Honestly, if you guys haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. If you watch it yet, of course it's a bit of a slow beginning, but I'd recommend that you get into the film. It's a great film, and I won't ruin too much for you. I'll let you go and figure out for yourself. I'm not going to ruin any spoilers. Yeah, go off track. So yeah, I finished watching June. I was on the train back. It was around 10:45, 11 o'clock. So Val was actually sacked when I was in the cinema watching the film.
Yeah.
Obviously, I found it out through the Watford Way and through Watford FC News. I'm sure you guys know him on Instagram. And it basically just said Valérien Ismaël has been relieved of his duties as Watford FC manager, with Tom Cleverley coming in as the interim manager until further notice, essentially until we get a new manager in, permanently. So my first reaction was, again, like James just said there, I'm not surprised whatsoever, because I did actually message you after the game saying there's no way I could see Val in the job now, because I've been saying that for the past few games. Because I've got his record up here. He's got 12 wins, 14 draws, and 15 losses throughout his whole tenure as Watford, which ultimately, on paper, yeah, I know there's more losses than wins, but we are a work in progress for a team, I think. We came in after a massive debacle with managers. Of course, we always chop and change. That's kind of what we're known for now. But he has a 29.27% win rate at Watford. And I was hoping that can continue on. I think he had a decent style of play, and he got to play some good football. Even though it started the string of wins, and some of his decisions were a bit wishy-washy with the team. So I think it was always going to be a bit of a struggle, I think, towards the end of the season, if he was making decisions that he was making. But I think he did all he really could with the team, to be honest. I think he wasn't given any backing in the summer by the Pozzos to get any money for the funds for the players that he really wanted to bring in. So I think it definitely played a bit more of a factor as to why he did so poorly under us towards obviously the end near his sacking. And with Tom Cleverley coming in, yes, he played for us. Yes, he's a veteran, and I know that he has experience obviously leading the players, has some pretty good leadership qualities, but no managerial experience. So how would that really battle out, especially in a competition and a league as fierce and as competitive as the Championship? How would that go along? I'm not too sure, but immediate reaction to Val sacking, not surprised, but hopefully we can see a string of wins and someone that can actually come in. Hopefully Tom can really get the boys going again.
Yeah, and as you say, a lot to discuss today. I think it was more down to, as you say, the recent form of the team. No home league win at Vicarage Road since, I believe, the 28th of November. Obviously, between that time, we won in the FA Cup against Chesterfield at home. But purely talking about Championship football here, we've not won at home since the 28th of November. And I think for any manager to survive kind of that run of form at any club, really, Cal, unless you're one of the big boys. It's going to be really, really difficult. I did read an article actually by Andrew French earlier today, which kind of contradicts what you just said a little bit in terms of him not being backed, because Andrew French and the ever reliable Lou Orns on Twitter have actually said that he was given a transfer budget of around £5 million in January, and it seems like Valérien Ismaël highlighted obviously 3 positions he wanted, which I believe was a defender, a defensive midfielder, and another striker, complete forwards. And then he kind of told the club the targets he was after. They couldn't get the options for whatever reason. And then when Valérien Ismaël, it seems from the article, when he was offered alternative players, he actually turned them down. So in terms of the January transfer window and having a stretch squad, yes, you could argue in the summer he wasn't adequately backed, but it seems like in January they did give him maybe some money and potentially some more players to bring in, and it seems like he turned them options down. So potentially putting that on Valérien for that one. Tom Cleverley, of course, Cal, as you mentioned, is coming in as interim. He has been managing the Watford under 18s this season, which he's been doing very well at. They picked up some really big results, actually scoring lots of goals in a few games. But for you personally, is it too much of a big step up to manage Watford in the Championship for these last 10 or so matches?
I mean, under 18s football to grown men in the Championship that are fighting for bids to obviously go up to the biggest league, arguably in the world, in the Premier League, and just with the competition that's always known in the Championship as always, that's a massive step up in my opinion. While of course he's getting results with some of the kids that we have. I still think managing the first team, yes, he can obviously promote a few of the people up from the under 18s to the team, obviously because they had that relationship already, and they'll be able to kind of maneuver their way into the team for for some games next season, but for some games for the rest of the season, and for however long he has his tenure here. But to be honest, I think it is just too big of a step up, and we need someone with that experience who has managed either in other leagues in England or has managed somewhere obviously across the big leagues in different countries. So I mean, didn't we get Valérien? I think it was from Besiktas, correct?
Yeah, well, he was sacked from Besiktas, but yeah, that was his previous club prior to Watford. Yeah.
Yes, I think where he's managed that Besiktas, West Brom, I think all these clubs here, and obviously now he's come to us. So again,
Barnsley,
he has experience in England. Barnsley, yeah, that's it. I mean, granted, I don't think he did very well at West Brom, but but granted, he still has managerial experience in England. I think that's kind of the manager is what we need. I mean, it's not necessarily someone who's the biggest name in the world, but I think someone just has a bucket tons of experience that actually knows what they're doing inside the English leagues, as that's what's really going to put us in a bit of a survival. That's just my opinion, but ultimately, I just think
to play devil's advocate though, quickly, Cal, do you not think that Cleverley already has an existing relationship with these players? Obviously, he only retired at the end of last season, so a lot of these players know Cleverley already. I'm sure we all know Cleverley is a leader. He captained Watford at times as well. Surely, as I said, to play devil's advocate, them existing relationships and then friendships that are already there may play into his favour for these final 10 games.
That is definitely true, and I think that's why I said just at the end of a few questions ago when I said hopefully the Tom can get the boys going again, because obviously he knows the players that are in around the squad, and hopefully rejuvenate the passion and leadership that we need to go out there, because obviously he knows what's expected of the players, because obviously he's seen it on the pitch alongside them. But in terms of the long term and whether I can see him getting permanent results, it's just essentially a matter of time. Of course, I can't predict the future, but with the way that we're going at the moment, unless we really implement a good style of play, and we can really start to pick up a good momentum, hopefully we can get a good new manager bounce with Tom obviously at the wheel now. And like I said, if he can, provide the results and bring the leadership, which I think is the qualities that we lack. I think we're lacking passion and leadership at the moment as the two big. I think we have the quality. We do have the young players. We have Yasser Esprit. We have Ismail Kone. Just to name a few. I think we can definitely get firing on all cylinders. And we have the squad. And we have the squad quality too. Fire on all cylinders. Whilst Tom's there, to be honest.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I know, it's yet another change of manager at Watford, and kind of I've got a list here of all the managers we've had since September 2019, and I'll reel them off to you now, Cal. And I think it highlights for me a bigger issue at play at Watford. So obviously, Quique Sanchez Flores come back on his return, Hayden Mullins, Nigel Pearson, Vladimir Ivic, Xisco Munoz, obviously in charge during our promotion season. Claudio Ranieri, Roy Hodgson, Rob Edwards, who is now obviously at Luton Town. After Rob Edwards comes Slavan Bilic and Chris Wilder at the end of last season. And now this season, obviously, we just had Valérien Ismaël. And now Tom Cleverley is in charge. And that's 12 managers since September 2019, Cal. For me, that highlights, a bigger issue at play here. This is, not just on the managers, because if you look at that list I just reeled off to you, there's a few managers in there where you go, they're actually pretty decent. Rob Edwards, I know we don't really want to discuss about him too much, Cal, and I want to get your take on that situation as well. But he's gone over to Luton Town in the Premier League on a fairly restricted budget, really. They've not spent really that much money generally, at least compared to Watford in previous seasons anyway. And he's kept them within a fighting chance of staying up. And he was at Watford just, about a year or so ago. And we sacked him after, 7-8 games. What's your stance on Gino Pozzo and the way the club operates? Because surely, Cal, this model of changing managers, this regularly is not sustainable, going forward.
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. I would be lying to you if I said that I wasn't embarrassed. Listening to the list of managers you were just naming off there like it was no tomorrow. Like you said, the 12 managers within 2 or so years, which is just craziness. That's 6 managers per year if you're looking at it mathematically. And
well, 2019, you could say about 3.5, 4 years there, but still,
I didn't even know it was that far back.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that's still 3-4 managers per year, but it's still craziness. And that is the Pozzo's approach to things. If it doesn't work after a few games, get rid of them. And like you said there, that isn't sustainable, and that isn't the way a club should be run whatsoever. And like you said, even if you like, with what you provided, Val, like you said there, about 5 million or something like that to really get the players that you want to try and bring in. 5 minutes not going to get you that much championship quality. Sure, I'll give you probably old players with experience, or if not young players. For example, like we brought in Mileta Rajovic, who hasn't exactly set the world alight for us, who don't have that much experience within the championship, and essentially it's just a young buy that we could buy just for the future for the club. But I don't see much talent that we can really buy with that amount. So you're almost kind of shooting yourself in the foot there, or the Potters are kind of shooting themselves in the foot by sucking these managers who aren't given their time to work with the players that they're bringing in on limited budget. And exactly like that could be said there for Rob Edwards. Like you said, I don't want to touch too much onto him because obviously he's Luton manager, but we gave him not even 2 months, I don't think, to really make a change here at Watford, and obviously got sacked straight away. I think out of all the managers you listed there, he was the sacking that I was most angry with.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Yeah.
Yeah, because we just didn't give him the time. I think it was after a run of 4 or 5 bad games. He was gone straight out of the window, and obviously, with Luton's manager gone, they decided to pick up Rob Edwards at the soonest possibility because they know that they can give him time and it'll be a work in progress. And look where they are now; they're just above, I think, avoiding safety in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, if that's what Rob Edwards can do with a team who, we even are even more of a financial disadvantage, knowing that they had to expand their stadium to get into the Premier League and give it a bit more of a smaller budget to bring in the players. I mean, they've brought in the likes of Ross Barkley, they've brought in the likes of Andros Townsend.
These smart signings because these are experienced pros, Cal. Andros Townsend in on a free. I think Ross Barkley might have been in on a free as well. Sambi Lokonga, I think, is on loan from Arsenal. So they've not necessarily splashed the cash, but what they've done is they've just made some smart signings, experienced pros, a couple of homegrown players as well. And I think that's something that, Watford have, definitely lacked in the past few years. I think Jake Livermore is a good example of someone who's come in, experienced and has done quite well this season. But largely, as you say, Jake Livermore isn't going to be here for the next 3, 4, 5 years. He's maybe got another season left in him, if that. And I think Watford need to definitely going forward recruit better, and it helps having a head coach for longer than 6, 7, 8 months, and trying to build a team with that head coach rather than constantly changing them. I want to touch on the Championship table now, Cal, because it's looking a little bit precarious to say the least. Watford currently sit 13th as we record this podcast today on 45 points. Huddersfield are in 22nd place on 38 points. So a 7-point differential there between Watford in 13th and Huddersfield in the relegation zone. Are you concerned that Watford could get dragged into a relegation battle? And do you think that's the reason behind kind of the club and Gina Pozzo making this change? Because they've panicked and gone, actually, you know, this season could get really bad if we don't make that change right now.
I mean, I'm looking here at the table as we're speaking there, and I can see on Google, you know, they have the form table, so they also have a green tick for the wins, a red cross for the losses, and a grey dash for the draws. I can see here we've got one green tick, three crosses, and one grey line, which obviously doesn't make for a good showing. And I don't think relegation's out of the picture now, to be completely honest with you. I think it's well and truly in, which is crazy to say considering, you know, we were doing very well at the start of the season. I think we were steering well clear of the relegation zone, and now looking where we are, I mean, the Championship table is also infamously known for being so tight because 24 teams. There's 4 more teams than what is in the Premier League, so the results are always going to be, you know, really tight. I mean, if you have a look, the distance between us and, let's say, 6th place, which is Norwich, about 13 points between, from 13th to 6th. You know, we've got 13 points there, which is, you know, really, really tight. And I think any result can really impact that. So I don't see relegation off the table if we're performing the way we are and we're still getting losses and we don't see much change in the players' attitude, in the way that we're playing and the style of play. If Tom doesn't really get any manager bounce that we expect him to get, obviously knowing that he knows all the players, and we can hopefully try and get a roll on a fire on all cylinders, I could definitely see us slipping into a relegation zone, which is scary to say. I know, definitely as a Watford fan. And just touching on, you know, the Pozzos and how, you know, this is why they may have probably made this change. I do agree partially, yes, because obviously, you know, wins are what matters. Obviously, you know, goals win games, but we've been lacking in that department severely, and we in terms of Ismaël, I probably would have kept Ismaël on personally just for a little bit longer, just to see, you know, if he still makes the same decisions after 2 or 3 games. This can be unpopular. I know the comments are probably going to slash me for this, but yeah, I probably would have kept him off for maybe 2 or 3 games to see if anything really is changing, and after that, I would have then given the sack. But I knew with the atmosphere around the club, with how the results were going, and how the players were performing, and how the fans on social media were starting to go pretty nuts, saying we need Val out and we need to change. It was inevitable it was going to happen. So yeah, I don't think relegation's off the cards, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, from my personal perspective, I don't think Watford will get relegated, and I actually don't think we would have got relegated under Valérien Ismaël either. I think there's enough teams between us and the relegation zone to suggest that we should be okay, and we should pick up a few more points between now and May at the end of the season. I think the squad there is largely strong enough. You mentioned earlier we've got the likes of Kone, Kayembe, Espria, Ryan Andrews, Wesley Hoop, Ryan Porteous. These are all decent professionals. They should be able to do a job, and quite a good job at that in the Championship. I think the concern, Cal, is really, you know, looking, you know, longer term ahead to next season and perhaps the year after that, because, you know, it's clear at Watford there is no long-term strategy here. There hasn't been a long-term strategy at Watford for a very, very long time. I think the last time I really felt really connected to a manager was probably Javi Gracia, as I said, in that FA Cup season, and you know that's nearly 5 years ago now. So it's been a long time since, you know, we've had, you know, someone to get behind who we truly believe in. And you have to remember then we had a fantastic squad, likes of Will Hughes, Telefeu, Dini was kind of in his pomp at that time as well. Gomez, Foster, Kiko Femenir, you know, I could list so many more players from that season. And you look at the current squad, and as you say, there are some star quality in there, likes of Yassir Espria, the Kones, who hopefully will grow and develop, whether that's at Watford or elsewhere. I'm just concerned that in the summer there might be an exodus of this talent. And then, as you say, Watford haven't recruited well within the past few years anyway. So if we recruit badly again this summer, with maybe the money we'll recoup from them sales, then that's concerning for me. again, Cal, looking ahead to the future, we was discussing this, before the podcast started. What is the long-term strategy for you? Put yourself in Gino Pozzo's shoes. I'm assuming, by the way, you are Gino Pozzo out, as is 99% of the Watford fan base. But put yourself in his shoes for a moment. What is your vision for Watford moving forward, and who would you recruit as kind of your long-term project manager? Because for me, it would be Danny Roll at Sheffield Wednesday. That would be my choice as kind of a long-term manager if I was in charge. But from your perspective, what do you see Watford's future as, and who would you choose to kind of lead that future?
Well, if I was to take out Pozzo's brain and replace it with mine, which is probably not the smartest decision, but yeah, anyway, if I was to really be in that ownership role, to really see what I can do to really move the club forward, first of all, I'd put my hands in my pockets a lot more. Okay. I'd increase the transfer budget given to the manager, and I'd want to stick with a manager to make sure that we can really get a long-term that long-term plan going. Because sure, you can sign the players that you get with that transfer budget. If you sack them straight away, they're basically at the club and haven't really been given a style of play because they were promised a style of play under the manager, but now he's gone after a few games. And again, that's not sustainable. That's not where you can win a club. So I think we did discuss this just before the stream to see really what managers are available on the market right now, who we can really tap into. And like I said there, it's all about putting my hands in my pockets and really trying to pull out as much cash as possible. And I'd say a bit unrealistic. I'll give you a realistic and unrealistic option. So unrealistic, I'd go all out for Steve Cooper. Obviously, just recently just left. I left and got sacked from Nottingham Forest, but he did a stellar job there from where he was when he first started at Nottingham Forest. So obviously getting them back up to the Premier League, and the signings that he's made from the squad that he has, he reminds me a bit of a Klopp job. He had quite a depleted Nottingham Forest squad. I don't think there was many big names to shout to write home about when he first took charge. But ever since to the end of his tenure at Nottingham Forest, the squad that he ended with was amazing. Some really top tier signings.
The caveat with the fact that Nottingham Forest are under investigation for breaking financial fair play rules.
Okay, but yeah, okay, right, yeah, fair enough. But I mean, because they had the exodus of players that they had to get rid of, and then the absolute influx of players that they signed in. Yeah, so that was a pretty dodgy deal in there. But I mean, just apart from that, it's still to show that he has ambition to sign players that he thinks are right for the squad, which is.
I think he's passionate as well, isn't he? I mean, you mentioned the comparison there to Klopp. Klopp's a very passionate guy, and I think everyone in world football would want someone like Klopp at their club. And I think Steve Cooper, I mean, I wouldn't want him personally, but as you say, he is, from my perspective, he does look like a very, very, very passionate manager.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an ambitious signing, but I think he has the tactical nous, obviously has the experience being with a club like Nottingham Forest, who are kind of a bit of English heritage for so long, that I think we'll be able to really take Watford forward and really kind of start right from the basics and, getting the budget that you need, really build up the squad again, just so we can really fight for those places. And I think probably Steve Cooper will be the man to do that. That's just my opinion, but I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments if you think I'm chatting rubbish, or if you think that this is genuinely a signing that we can go for. Make sure you let me know down in the comments. But if I want to go for anyone realistic, at the moment, Danny Roll, I think, is definitely a good shout. I think he has... Yeah. Obviously, he has just left his stint at the club he was previously at, and I think he could definitely take the club to real things, but to real good things. But there's one player that get your words out, Callum. There'd be one manager that I'd be looking at who's had just departed from another Championship club, which I'll be looking at. But I think while he hasn't worked with a club to get them up to Premier League promotion, I still think the work that he did with the club shouldn't really be underestimated and could really be a work in progress with us. And that's Gary Rowett of Millwall. He departed earlier on in the 2023 to 2024 season with Millwall. But he's competed with some top teams, managed to get some great results out of teams that he got with the Millwall side, again, with not really many players to really to write home about. I mean, obviously, you have players like Wallace. I think he's really the only player at the top of my head that I can really mention to you that's a Millwall player. I mean, apart from that, I don't know many players in their side that would be shouted about by many of the top sides. But Gary Rowett had an impressive few months with Millwall, obviously until his departure. But I think he has quite an aggressive style of play, and I will definitely be able to get a new style of play implemented into the boys, especially with with the leadership that he has in the squad, being able to take the squad like Millwall from where he was up until where they are now. If we can have that development going forward, that's something that will benefit us, sure. And one more manager that I personally wouldn't take, but if it was generally just if we're going for a bit of a snatch and grab manager, we obviously Pozzo's being Pozzo's that they haven't prepared properly. Then I've got one manager on my mind, which is Paul Heckingbottom. That is just an absolute bottom of the barrel scrape if we can try and get it, because obviously he did well with Sheffield United getting them back up to the Premiership. From whilst being in the Championship, and I think that's kind of his level. To be honest, he's not made out for the Premier League. I think the Championship's where he should really stay. While I've struggled in the top flight this year, he did get a lack of investment. But like I said there, if I was to have that change, if I was to give him the funds needed to make the signings that I think would thrive under a Championship side like Watford, I think it could be a work in progress from there. And I think he could be what we need really to steady the ship and turn around our fortunes. But again, like I said, that's a bit of a bottom of the barrel signing, so I'd probably go for Steve Cooper. While that's very unrealistic, I'd love to know what everyone else thinks in the comments. So, if you've got any managers that are currently out of a job or are in a job that you think we can sweep, make sure you let us know.
Interesting stuff there from Cal. I've gone Danny Roll. He has gone Steve Cooper. Last thing to touch on, Cal, before we head off today, and it's again referring back to the very short and brief statement that Watford put out. Obviously, they thanked Valérien for his dedication to the job and all that nonsense that they have to put out in their statements. But they also said at the bottom of the statement that Tom Cleverley's staff will be confirmed in due course, which firstly suggests to me that Tom Cleverley was not aware this was about to happen, because if he was aware, that structure would have already been put in place around him. Who do you want to join Tom Cleverley on his coaching staff? Because there's a lot of names that could be thrown about. I think the big name that could potentially rejoin is Troy Deeney.
Yeah,
if he was contacted by Watford. I personally probably wouldn't want that to happen. I think it would maybe even disrupt us, further and disrupt the dressing room further than it has been already. But there's a lot of ex-Watford players, a lot of ex-Watford coaches that have departed the club in recent years who could rejoin. Is there anyone in your head particularly that stands out, Cal, or would you kind of appoint, internally? Obviously, Tom Cleverley's been working with the under-18s this season. He could bring, his coaching staff from the under-18s up with him as well. Or is there any other players or people you particularly would like to join Tom for these last 9 to 10 games?
I mean, in terms of the squad that he has, the team that he has with him in the under-18 setup, like I said, I still think the managerial role, obviously a big step up to the Championships, a bit too big for Tom, if I'm being completely honest with you. So how is managing team fair? Because obviously they also massively influence what happens on the pitch just as much as what the manager does. As obviously they feed back to the manager, like obviously things that should happen and shouldn't happen on the pitch. Obviously get the substitutes warmed up and really help the team during the games. Will they be able to reflect that in Championship results? I'm not too sure. I don't think there's anyone really in my mind apart from Troy, like you mentioned there, because I was literally about to say the exact same thing until you said it. That I think would kind of fit within this setup, because, like I said, I haven't really seen him manage properly. He doesn't have that much experience, so I don't know who can really go alongside him to work properly, because I don't know his style of play. I'd love to say that I've watched Watford under-18s all season, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. So, unless we do a deep dive on analysis to really his style of play and how he's managed to get this Watford under-18 side into the string of wins that he's been having. For now, I can't really say anyone off the top of my head that I can really see be part of his managerial side. It's just kind of a wait and see in an interim position, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens, as you say. And I think we've covered pretty much all bases there today. We'll quickly take a look at Watford's upcoming fixtures. I'll do a quick Google for you now. It's got a very tough run of games coming up towards the end of the season. For me, only a couple of winnable games in there in the next 9 or 10 games. Birmingham away this coming weekend. Then we've got Leeds at home on Good Friday on Easter weekend. West Brom on Bank Holiday Monday. Preston at home, Ipswich away, Southampton away, Sunderland at home in that run as well. So a very tough run of games coming up for Watford. Let's hope Tom and the boys can pick up some positive results and keep us clear of that relegation battle. Cal, as always, a pleasure having you back on the channel as usual. Really appreciate your time and you being on here today. Thank you so much for watching as well, guys. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Let me know if you agree with what I've said or what Cal said in the comments section down below, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.